to Homegrown, a Soccer Yanks podcast, our home for domestic soccer. This is Jason Sierra, and if you're hearing me first, that's because Dan's not here. But we do have a guest with us, essentially the new boss of Soccer Yanks. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're on. I haven't talked to you in a while. I think the last time we talked, we did a podcast that was kind of lost to the ether.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it went into the abyss the last time we recorded together. So, it's good to get back into the swing of things here, and yeah, just happy to be on board here.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Kyle, no Chelsea talk today. All right, we're gonna avoid the Chelsea. Maybe maybe we'll have you on after the Chelsea comes for their international cup. I know they're coming to New Jersey. I know you might be coming to New Jersey to watch that game, and I won't be going to the game, but I'll probably meet up with you for a beer or two.
Yeah, that is confirmed. I don't have tickets in my possession, but me and a buddy for a Chelsea blog I write for, he that lives up around Newark, he was able to secure some tickets, so it's definitely confirmed. So beers will be had.
Awesome. Great. I need to get out of the house. The baby's the baby's taking up a lot of my time. But also taking up a lot of my time is soccer. We have so much soccer this month. So we're going to start off what I think is right now the biggest tournament. It's the Women's World Cup. And Kyle, just kind of give me your impressions on Fox's coverage, because everyone's seeing this as being the precursor to what we expect to see for the Men's World Cup. What do you think about Fox's coverage so far?
I don't know if this is so much a thing with Fox. Well, I guess it does partly tie into Fox, because in my opinion, Fox Soccer Plus is just absolutely terrible. ESPN, if you have cable, you can basically watch anything on ESPN3 or watch ESPN, whatever it's called now. NBC Sports, they have, the NBC Sports Live Extra, and you can watch, all the Premier League games. But Fox Soccer Plus, you got to pay for it. Unless you do the, I guess, the efficient way, and just, get a bunch of email addresses and get your free subscriptions in. So that's one way to do it. But I don't know. I just don't like seeing a tournament this big where all the games aren't on TV. At least to my knowledge, is that correct?
Well, do you have Fox Sports 2 where you are?
I do, but I think I have DirecTV, and I think it's because I have that package that Fox Sports 2 comes with.
Okay, because right now I think they're doing both games on Fox Sports 2, which a lot of people don't have, and I think you're running into the same problem a lot of people are having, is they don't have Fox Sports 2. I don't have Fox Sports 2 in HD. That's partially, and yes, we were recording this on Thursday. Yesterday there was no games. The day before there was, I believe, 4 games, or actually 6 games. So there was game ones where they were going head-to-head simulcasting against each other. Yeah, part of that I think is Fox's fault. Part of that I think they could have a match on Fox broadcast, and a match on Fox Sport 1. So we don't have that problem where Fox Sports 2 has nothing, no one's watching the games. But in general, the stuff they can't control, because they really can't control the schedules. What do you think of their presentation? Do you like their post-game show or their end of the evening show they have? What do you think about their announcing?
A lot of people criticize their announcing. I know Alexi Lawless definitely doesn't. He definitely doesn't get much praise at all. So, a lot of people like to hate for that. But I see the potential in everything that they're doing. It kind of sucks that this is kind of like, I guess you could say, an experiment, like you said, for what to expect when they get the rights to the Men's World Cup. But I see the potential with everything that they're doing, and I mean, there's room to grow. I haven't had many complaints really about it.
I'm generally not the biggest Alexi supporter. It is because he carries himself. I think he purposely carries himself to be this hot take. He wants to be essentially the Stephen A. Smith of men's soccer.
Yes.
Whether he admits it or not, he definitely tries to rile up the fan base and kind of say things that are not. It's not the most thoughtful stuff at times. But I will say this, and I will say I actually really appreciated him being there I believe it was Sunday when ESPN ran their outside the line interview with Hope Solo's half sister, talking about this new investigation, talking about the Hope Solo domestic abuse problems. The women on the set, the Heather Mitz, and I'm sorry I forget the other woman. She's not as frequent as much on the set as Heather Mitz has been. They were not as. The word I'm looking for is, you know what? They were mealy-mouthed when it came to talking about Hope Solo and her issues and her problems. To me, they were definitely seems like, and this might be an issue with women's soccer, they definitely said they didn't want to offend anybody on that team. They felt like they were so close to their fellow teammates that they didn't want to hurt their standing with their teammates, and they didn't say what they might have actually felt. And Alexi Lalas came out and said this straight up. I don't care the kind of person she is because she's the best player in the world. Whether it's the proper thing to say or not, who cares? He took a strong stance on it, and the next day she actually proved it by being the best keeper in the world in the first game.
Yeah.
I was kind of thankful he was there because that coverage with those women really, really disappointed me. What have you thought about the analysis? Have you watched a lot of the post game shows or the evening shows? Have you do you have any personalities within these women who are talking about the message after the game? Did anybody really stand out to you?
I wouldn't really say that anyone stood out so far. I haven't watched a ton of the post game stuff. I usually just try and get some quick hits and just try and catch the goals and maybe a couple highlights if I can. So no, I wouldn't really say that there's anyone that I have any favoritism towards or anything like that.
I have to say, the German commentator, she was on the last, I believe she's on both the German Women's World Cup team. My wife pointed out to me, she seems so much like Michael Ballack, so much with that arrogance and bravado, like she belongs there, like she's almost telling these Americans the right way of doing it. I'm kind of falling for her. I kind of love her takes. But I think essentially it maybe I think a lot of women there are having a lack of opinions. I think Adrian Hikes, who is the German, is the only really one who's willing to stand on a ledge here and make some really strong opinions that women have. And I don't think that's a Fox thing. I just think that's kind of the way women's soccer is right now, is that there's not as much a strong coverage in this. And I think hopefully the more coverage we give it, the better analysts we're going to get from these coverage. But I think it's right now I think it's a training ground for a lot of these women here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So let's continue with the women's soccer. I watch NWSL. I catch occasionally the women's national team when it's on. I don't watch any of the other women's soccer leagues. I don't watch any of the other women's teams. So once every 4 years, it's kind of like it's like a check-in to see how it is. What have you thought about what you're watching?
It's been my interest in women's soccer has grown. I coach an under 18 men's team, boys team, whatever. And we have a girls team in our club, a U16 team. So I've had an interest, watching their teams at tournaments and just seeing the differentiating styles between the men's and women's game. And I'm enjoying the Women's World Cup so far, though. Probably more than I have ever. I think that it's the quality of play. It's not fair to compare it to the men's game just because it's totally differentiating styles.
When I'm watching this, I don't want to compare it to the men, obviously, but what I want to compare it to a little bit is the youth men. And what I see is great athletes. I see really high-level talent on the top end, but I see the lack of nuances and the lack of tactical awareness that you might see in like a U20 tournament that we're going to talk about later on. The best teams are good tactically, they're good physically, but everybody else is really on a strong learning curve, and that's kind of what you see in the youth men. I like to compare more to the youth men than the actual men.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think I think it's sort of like you can compare it as to. I feel like the gap between the best players and the not as good players, like players that are good enough to make the team. Maybe like the 19th, 20th women on the squad. I think the gap is bigger in the under 20 teams and in the women's teams as opposed to the men's. The gap is a lot closer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's kind of goes to professionalism. I think the best two or three players in most of these countries, they might be professionals, and the rest of the women, these are young women who are either trying to go to college with, or are just just happen to be the best players in their region, and they happen to maybe just get lucky enough to fall in on the radar of a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
We have a system here. We could pick out the best women to be our team, and a lot of these countries, the best women or the best woman might be a school teacher, or who might have not kicked the soccer ball in 3 years just because the opportunity wasn't there for her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
So with the best team, and I think it was clear to say that the U.S. is one of the best teams, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about the first or the 23rd. So I think that second team U.S. will probably compete for a title as well. What have you seen from the women, the American women, compared to other teams, and do you like what you see?
I would say for the first game, I mean that friendly against was it South Korea they played like right before the
Yes.
World Cup.
Yep, that was at Red Bull Arena
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the Saturday before.
yeah. I mean they didn't put in the strongest performance there. And honestly, Monday I didn't feel that they played very strong, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's I would much rather them play their worst game of the tournament in the first game than their best game, obviously. Um, but I feel like I'm seeing that the rest of the world is kind of catching up to the U.S. I feel like that we've kind of stayed on par. I mean, we're still an elite team in the world. I think that we have arguably the best setup in the world as far as getting female soccer players from youth up to professional in the NWSL and even with the national team. I think setup's great and everything, but I just don't see. I don't see them changing their game or adapting to the game. Like I just see the same old style that they've always played, and I feel that the rest of the world is kind of they're kind of doing something different, and I think the rest of the world is starting to catch up to the U.S.
I have to say, and I totally agree with you. The rest of the world's catching up with the U.S. I think the rest of the world is playing a lot more like the most technical men team in the world, or the most technical clubs in the world. And I think, and you know what, I will make a Chelsea reference here. I think the U.S. plays Neanderthal 18th century soccer, real 18th century soccer, or real 19th century soccer, not the stuff that Josie Mourinho talking about with bunkering down, like actual. We're gonna get the ball and we're gonna run at you with five people, and then we're just gonna blitz you. There's so little evidence that they're willing to play possession and slow a game down and kind of choke a game out. Stuff that a great team needs to do. That is very so direct, is so forceful, so at them that it leaves them open for a lot of mistakes. What they made. I mean, New Zealand should have capitalized better. Essentially, we just wore them down, and Megan Rapinoe was the best person on that field, and Celine Leroux was excellent in that game as well. But it just seems like we're winning because we just have the best athletes on the field,
Yeah,
not because we have the best soccer.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we even have players that are just they started with the 4-4-2 and players that are just like playing out of position. Like Kristen Press, I don't understand why she's playing on the outside. I mean, she's such a phenomenal player, and I don't understand why she's not playing up top. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I understand if we're gonna run two in the front, two up top, why she's not in the front. But still, though, I mean, they moved her up top in the second half, and I mean, it opened up a lot for her game. But yeah, I mean, I would agree though. I think that it's they're still doing I wouldn't necessarily call it kickball, but like you said, they're not willing to slow down the game. It was late in the game. I think it was like the 79th minute, and I can't remember who it was that even came on. Was it Alex Morgan that came on? I can't even remember.
I believe Osborne came on for Cindy LaRue in the 70, late in the game. She was a
Yeah,
second
yeah,
sub, I believe.
yeah. I don't know the exact minute, but it was late in the game. The U.S. is up 2-1, and I know that goal differential is of the utmost importance in the group play, but I mean, a game like that where Australia was getting tons and tons of chances, I don't know. I just didn't understand it, I guess.
Yeah, it's like you said, out of position. There's Christy Lloyd could put her foot in the ball and slow a game down, but there's no holding midfielder on this team. And I'll take a little bit from what Jen Cooper, who's the host of the Keeper Notes and the Mix Zone on the Howler podcast, which is a really great women's podcast. She talks about how there's a lack of expanding the pool and bringing in different people and bringing in people who fit in the setup. That this team was more constructed to have their best 23 and then to kind of win with their best players, kind of bludgeon people to death, rather than think about how the way you construct the team. And the way they looked on that field, there was huge gaps in that middle of the field between the forwards and the central midfielders that they kind of didn't know what to do with themselves. They allowed so much opportunity to counterattack. That's something I don't think they're going to let Sweden, who looked exhausted at the end of the Nigeria game, but who looked so sound as a team, so tactically sound, so positionally sound as a team, until they got really tired. I don't think that's something that Sweden's going to let them get away with.
Yeah, yeah. In that game I mean, that's going to be so important. It could potentially decide the group, depending on obviously what happens with that game, and then what happens with Australia and Nigeria.
Right. I mean, fortunately, they got 3 points. The way the system's worked out, they're almost guaranteed to go to the next round into knockouts. So, with that, let's talk about the men U20 team, the other second biggest tournament right now, at least for now, until a couple of days from now we go to the Copa America, which might be your first or second priority. But the men just won their knockout game against Colombia. It was a 1-0 score. Rubio Lareen scored a goal. I would say a little bit out of against the run of play. Kind of an American goal at the end of that. Kind of a grinding goal. What have you thought so far of the Americans, of the American boys?
I thought they've done really well. I mean, they've had high expectations going into this just because of they've had some guys in the squad that have featured in the men's national team with Klinsmann, with Rubin in it. I mean, they have so much talent, players that are playing over in England and whatnot, and all across Europe. I feel that the expectations were kind of high, and eventually we'll get to the point where we talk about whether they've lived up to it. But I mean, I thought they've looked pretty well. I unfortunately haven't got to watch any games live yet, but no, I mean, in my opinion, I think they've done really well so far.
Yeah, there's been a couple of guys. I think Kellen Acosta got a shot, maybe one. I think Tommy Thompson definitely got one. I know that for sure. So there's a handful of guys who might have got at least one or two, shots of canned cupcake and a couple of different things. So there's guys who got national team call-ups, but Rubin's definitely the one who's getting steady rotation in that. Me having a child, waking up at random hours in the evening, I was able to catch a couple of live action. I wasn't sitting watching the whole game, but I did peek in for a good 20-30 minutes sometimes. But I'm kind of how everybody else is. I have a life. I work outside of this. I work 9 to 5, and I watch the U.S. game when I'm eating my breakfast, and then I watch the rest of it when I come home. And and I try to avoid Twitter. We're talking a little about this. You try to avoid Twitter as well. How does it feel? Just kind of do you feel like you're even part of this community, part of everything? Do you feel like you're getting as much out of the games, not absorbing them when they're happening, not absorbing them live?
Yeah, part of my thing is when I watch something like that, like I mean, the opening night of Copa America was tonight. Chile and Ecuador are playing right now, but stuff like that, like I feel like I'm out of the loop because I feel like to me being on Twitter while it's going on is like part of the game now. Like I just feel that we live in such a digital world anymore that a lot of stuff that isn't seen, you kind of get like some side commentary from Twitter, stuff that the announcers maybe didn't catch, or maybe some stats throughout the game. And I feel like I miss out on a lot just because I haven't watched any of the games yet. If they would play them at midnight, I mean, I'd be all right with that because they'd be done at like 2:30, and that's usually when I go to bed. So I think I can't even remember who they were playing. It was I believe it was their second group game. I was up working on something, so I did catch a little bit of that. But I feel like I'm sort of out of touch a little bit with not experiencing the games on Twitter and stuff like that.
I stopped following Twitter while I'm watching MLS games. Just by following this league for long enough, know a lot of the storylines going on. Short of an injury or something kind of crazy happening, I avoid. I don't run to my phone or run to my computer while watching an MLS game. But a World Cup where you're not recognizing all the players, and you're not even recognizing a lot of the American players too. These are guys we don't see. There's guys like Matt Miazga, Jared Allen, Rubio Rubino I don't watch on a regular basis. Bradley Joseph, Tommy Thompson, when we get to play, we love to watch him. Eric Palmer Brown, these are guys we see, but everybody else, we don't see on a regular basis. They're in Europe, they're playing in lower division leagues, we definitely can't watch those. So it is nice to have those people out there who have that extra knowledge and can fill in the narrative, or fill in the gaps of our knowledge. I think we definitely lose a lot of that, not being able to watch it live. So far, do you think, at this point, being in the second, winning a knockout game, being at that next level, is this a success for the U.S. team? Do you think they should go farther, having all these professional players on their roster?
I feel like they need one more win in my eyes. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the pulse is, what the consensus is. Maybe, like I said, I feel like there have been some really high expectations just because of the quality of players that are on this team. But I think personally, for my liking, I mean, obviously, I would like to see them win it all. But realistically, I really want to see them win at least one more game.
Well, they're playing Serbia, and I'm not even going to pretend like I know.
Yeah, honestly,
I
have no idea.
So if I sit here and say, "Oh yeah, I think they should win," or whatever, I mean, the Ukraine, blew us out in the last 30 minutes of that last game. So, at this point, it's kind of up in the air. I think prior to this match, I would have said, yes, one knockout win would make it. But I think, I think their performances thus far, I think what we've seen defensively, I think they could grind out games. I think one more win. One more win makes it a success. I think it's acceptable now. I think it's a full-blown success with one more win. We're coming to the end of U20. Like you said, tonight we have the Copa America starting. Where does MLS right now rank in your viewing priority?
So I'm kind of on this weird cycle where, I mean, when MLS starts, obviously that's priority number 2 for me. Premier League is priority number 1 just because of my deep love for Chelsea. I think part of that is just because I don't necessarily have an MLS team that I follow, and I think that's my problem. And I don't understand why I don't have a team, because there's 2 teams within like 3 hours of me. But I think that's part of the problem as to why I don't follow MLS as closely as I would like to. Because, with any other league, if like with baseball, I'm a Red Sox fan. If the Red Sox aren't playing, I'll still watch. And same with hockey. If the Penguins aren't playing, I'll still watch, regardless of, who it is. And I think that's part of the MLS thing is if it's like a marquee matchup or like Soccer Sundays, I try and watch as much of those as I can. But I mean, right now, we've talked Women's World Cup, Under 20, touched on Copa America, and now the Copa America's here. Copa America's probably going to be number 2 behind the Women's World Cup, and I would have MLS 3A and U20s 3B just because of the time difference. Doesn't really the U20s playing at 3 a.m. doesn't really cut into to MLS time. So, it might just cut into, I'm at home working on some stuff, and I'll have the game on in the background or whatever. But, so yeah, I would have MLS at 3 right now.
So if you notice, the sound of this conversation probably changed a little bit. It's Thursday in the Northeast right here, Thursday evening, and it's extremely hot, and I had to turn off my air conditioner in my room. Having no air conditioner for almost an hour overheating my computer, so we're doing the rest of this mobile. We're gonna pick up where we left off at, and go to where MLS in my book ranks for me right now, and that is like just like you is third right now. My wife is South American, so Copa America is now number one priority in our home, and the Women's World Cup has fallen to number two. MLS, unless it's a Red Bull game for her, she frankly just doesn't care. I could try to sell every narrative to her they know of, and she just frankly doesn't care. It's almost like baseball for MLS, and I think it's very common with a lot of people. My wife is almost like that perfect straw person of a casual soccer fan, where she just doesn't care unless it's her team. And it's she just doesn't care about baseball. Let's it's the Yankees, and she doesn't care about MLS unless it's the Red Bulls. So it's kind of where she's at. I think that's where a lot of Americans at. And I think MLS kind of recognizes that too, because right now, this week, there's only 6 games. There's no Friday game. There is only one Sunday game. And that's not because everyone's super for the Soccer Cup this week. It's because they recognize that there's only so much soccer that we Americans can consume. And I think they recognize that they're going to be number 3 in a lot of people's books as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Copa America, I just found out today that all of their games, granted I believe this is for outside of the US and UK, but all of their games will be free on YouTube. They will be broadcast live for free on YouTube, on Copa America's YouTube page. But I mean, even if you're in the States and don't have maybe you don't have beIN Sports, you could use a VPN or whatever and kind of do it that way.
It's actually kind of funny because Traffic owns the broadcast rights and sponsors Copa America, so it's kind of nice that doing some nice things for the world and kind of giving the world the beautiful game after the troubles this past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All right, we're at this point we usually have the interview, but because we're doing 2 Homegrown podcasts this month, though, we're gonna not have an interview for this one, and we're just gonna go right to the 3 questions. We usually pick a name or some kind of phrase or fact or person, and because this is we typically don't like to talk about days, but we've mentioned a lot that is Thursday only because of contents with all the games going on. So in today, so in the 1-1 draw with Germany, Norway's Aaron Mjelde had a beautiful free kick from the 19-yard line that just curled over a leaping defender's head over the wall, and goalkeeper had no shot at it. So this one is the Mjelde. There are 3 questions. Let's talk a little bit MLS. Do you think right now that the Montreal Impact have enough in their tank to climb into a playoff spot?
I mean, it's gonna be tough for them. I mean, they exhausted so much into the Champions League that it kind of dug them into a hole. And like we said, well, we didn't say this on air, but before when we were talking, you can't necessarily say they have so many games at hand. Those they're not guaranteed points. So I mean those are still games that they have to play. So I personally don't think that they can overcome it.
Well, I mean they're clearly a better team than we expect them to be. They won 4 out of 5 all since the CONCACAF Champions League. Right now they're averaging 1.4 points a game, but they've only played 10. And that's a lot of games to make up. They're not in a hot area where you have to worry about it, like say Houston or Dallas or even the Northeast and just the humidity. But they're still going to break down. They still got a long way to travel compared to most teams. While I think they have the talent, I just think the compression of schedule is not going to allow them to catch up and get themselves a playoff spot in the East this year.
I don't think the compressed schedule does them any favors, and it's certainly going to hinder their chances of even coming close to winning 4 out of 5 consistently, stuff like that. It definitely hinders their chances of doing that.
I mean, and not to mention, they've had injuries. They lost Kellen Porter, and they lost Justin Mapp. So, unless they pick up some quality bodies, another DP possibly, it's going to be tough road ahead for them. All right, next question.
So I guess the best way to say it is, this week we've won, we beat Germany 2-1 in a friendly, and a couple days before that we beat Netherlands. It was 4-3. We were down 3-1 in the second half and scored 3 goals in 20 minutes. And I don't know about our listeners, but visiting the MLS subreddit is like a daily thing for me, just to kind of get the pulse. Since I don't follow MLS as closely right now, it helps me keep what the pulse is like on MLS. And I mean, obviously I watch pretty much every U.S. men's team that I can watch, men's team game that I can watch. But I saw a post today that I forget who it even was, but someone wrote an article asking if this was the best week in U.S. soccer history, which I think is an overreaction myself. But I'm curious to see what your opinion is. Do you think that this? Do you think, in general, do you think people are overreacting to how big this is for U.S. soccer?
I'm 1950 when they beat England to make it to the third. What's it? The third game in the 1950 World Cup in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of newcomers, they might not paid attention when the U.S. beat Spain in the Confederates Cup in South Africa. I think it's a nice week. I think it's you know what? It changed the narrative more important than anything else. I don't take a lot of things out of this game because I don't think a lot of the losses were a big deal either, except for the fact they're losing the same way. And I thought that was possibly just because of depth. I thought when you do wholesale switch outs of 6 guys at once, or 6 guys in a 20-minute span, you're obviously going to have a loss in quality. I think the big thing to get out of this was that we might have quality players in that 12 through 18 role that we didn't see a couple of years ago, and then maybe all this stuff of grabbing guys from all over the place and trying guys out who you may have not thought deserved the opportunity, giving them a chance. I think that it kind of paid off at this point, and Jurgen kind of deserves a little bit of credit for mixing and matching so frequently and getting the results that we're now seeing.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I wholeheartedly think that it's some of the reactions that I've seen, and I sarcastically tweeted, the other day, it was something stupid. It was like back-to-back World War champs beating the defending World Cup champs, something stupid like that. And then I said we're going to win the 2018 World Cup, which we'll talk about that when the day comes. But but I was seeing like people seriously thinking that this was going to have huge impacts. But what I take away from it myself is kind of what you said is seeing these different guys worked into the team. Seeing Zardes has played really well. Jordan Morris is probably my favorite player on the national team right now. He's such an exciting player to watch. So it's like refreshing to see that like you said, Klinsmann's making these wholesale changes, and they're working for him. They may be friendlies. Germany may not have had their best team out there, but at the same time, Ozil was starting, Goetze was starting, Schürrle was starting, but those 3 players alone, those are 3 really, really top class players. And even Netherlands, Memphis Depay, Jean-Claude Huntelaar, guys like that. So it's good to see that that we can finally not run with the same lineup, the same guys. And like you said, Klinsmann's he's testing out to see which guys can be and fit in that that 12 to 18 range, or maybe even 9 to 18 range of the second half of the team. So
yeah, Klinsmann knows how to scout players. He knows when to recognize talent, and we question it a lot of times. Bobby Wood, who nobody even really saw to be anything MLS quality guy, some people are saying, which I think is ridiculous. Now it's 2 winners against the Netherlands and Germany. Bobby Wood. Klinsmann find these guys. He might not be able to coach them well, but he can find them. I'll give him that. And I think the turnaround is we actually have players who can play the game.
Yeah, yeah, I think Bobby Wood had something like 3 goals in 2 years, or 2 goals in 3 years, or something like that. I can't remember. And then
Yeah,
uh,
two game
I,
winners in 5 days.
yeah, yeah, and I remember the broadcast team after the after he scored, or it was just after the final whistle in the Netherlands game that the broadcast team was saying, for you could go to his club team's website and get his jersey for like 60% off or something like that. Um,
I'm sure they're not there anymore.
yeah, yeah, they're probably sold out by now.
All right, so last question here. The biggest domestic news of the week for club soccer all came from the NASL. We heard that Miguel Ibarra transferred to Club Leon. They estimate about $1 million transfer, and Carmelo Anthony of the New York Knicks is investing in Puerto Rico FC. Which of these two is the bigger story?
That's tough for me. I'm gonna go with Miguel Ibarra, just because it is for so long. I mean, really since he burst on the scene within the last year or so. Um, hardcore MLS fans have been, saying he has to come to MLS. He has to play top tier soccer, and I don't want to say it's like a slap in the face because it doesn't necessarily. I don't want to. I don't know if I should say offend me. It doesn't. It's nice to see he's finally going to play top tier soccer. Um, I just this is tough, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Miguel Ibarra though.
I'm going to go with Anthony, but I'm going to talk about Ibarra first, in a sense that I think he has a talent, obviously, to be MLS. And I think, as does Jordan Morris, has the talent to be in MLS. But I think what both players are showing, staying in situations that are less than the top class in this country, is that quality players believe that MLS is not the only way to get to a top club. And these Ibarra and Morris are opting to stay in, less than what we all would consider to be competitive get leagues, or who Morris not even professional yet, to not go in MLS and be under their structure. I'm not sure if this deal gets done to Club Leon if Ibarra is in MLS. I'm not sure if the league, knows how to work the system. But this is a deal between the two clubs. When Morris comes out, yeah, he's probably going to Seattle Sounders because he has a lot of connections to Seattle Sounders. His father is a doctor there. Now, I wouldn't call him a Sounders product, but he spent the senior year with the Sounders youth team in high school, so he's officially, tied to the Sounders. But I think Jordan Morris is, I wouldn't be surprised if he just bypasses the Sounders altogether and just goes to the league. But I think this is a little more about MLS than does about these, that player. But I think Carmelo Anthony attaching himself to the NASL, I guess a second iteration of a professional club team in Puerto Rico. I guess we're assuming that the cost of travel is not going to be that expensive. I guess we're assuming that Carmelo Anthony's name is enough to get that team up and running and popular. I hope it's not the USL version of the Islanders when they were there. But I think having a big time name, putting his money towards something and investing his money towards something like this is a good sign for that league, who's had a lot of bad publicity and a lot of bad news the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I just hope it doesn't sort of become the animal that the Beckham situation has become, where it's. I don't want to say it's like a publicity stunt, but it's. I want to see the program succeed, and I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be, Carmelo FC or anything like that.
Well,
Um,
I think it's publicity stuff. I think we have to assume it to be a publicity stuff. But is Melo the money or is Melo the manager? And
right.
I think he's the money.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, it's been a good show despite the technical difficulties. I enjoyed possibly. If this is posting, uh, if we can get this going, I'm enjoying actually having a soccer Yanks homegrown with you, Kyle. And congratulations on the new position.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully, I have a couple of ideas whipped up that me and Dan are collaborating with, and we're even getting your input in, as if you needed even more on your plate. But
Oh
of
yeah, yeah.
course, of course, we always appreciate it though.
Yeah, I think I'm a homegrown only person for the next couple of months. I didn't even push out my top five rookies for the week last month. Oh, by the way, it's Laren, Ashe, let's see, Roseberg. We'll go with Plotter, and the last one would be, oh man, I gotta think of number five. I don't have the number five. I don't have a number five. The midfielder slash forward from LA Galaxy, who I talked a lot about in the previews. Oh, I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering things. But my computer's down. I can't fix that right now. But we've taken too much of your time already. Thank you for listening to us. This is Jason Sierra at Rescinder Red on Twitter. Kyle.
Yeah, this is Kyle Bennett. You can find me at KBJelly on Twitter, and everything Soccer Yanks at Soccer Yanks on Twitter as well.
All right. Thanks for listening.